Welcome to the Base Path Podcast, brought to you by New England Baseball Journal. I'm your host, Dan Guttenplan. Today's guest is a former baseball player at Northeastern. He's also an assistant coach at Merrimack College, but his main job is the director of player development for the New Hampshire Prospects travel ball team. It's Chris Carmain. Chris, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you guys for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I wanted to reach out. One of the things that caught my eye in recent weeks, I know we'd been in touch, just kind of going over our recruiting, our player commitments and all that. You guys had as many recruits as just about any travel ball program in New England with, how many are you up to now?
32 now.
32 college commitments. That's amazing. So I kind of wanted to dig in and find out, how you're helping these guys get recruited. You obviously are dialed into the college baseball recruiting scene. You know how the transfer portal has kind of impacted things in recent years. What is the, you hear about so many guys that are frustrated with the college recruiting process because more and more recruiting happens through the transfer portal, and these high school guys don't have the opportunities. Obviously, you're finding ways for guys to get to these programs. What are some of the things you're doing with New Hampshire Prospects to help these guys out?
Well, Dan, I think it first starts with the quality of player that we try to breed within our organization. We take a lot of pride in obviously the player development, which is one of my roles. But as the director of the New Hampshire Prospects, it's my goal to try to find fits for guys throughout New England. That's usually our strongest recruiting base, just because of the relationships that we have. The three main guys that help us recruiting are, obviously myself. Then we have Preston Yarrington, who's actually working with St. Anselm College this year. He's our director of pitching, and Matt Bouchard. So the three of us kind of tag team to be able to communicate with coaches that we have relationships with to see, who has a need at a certain position. Do we have a guy that can fit that? And then because of the quality of player that we usually produce from our program, it's usually an easier transition for these college coaches because they know the guy coming in is going to be prepared and ready to go on the field. So I think that's kind of our plan of attack for the 2025 class this year, which we were very successful with. It was more of, okay, well, we have our, the guys that get recruited by themselves with that top level talent, right? Those are the Division I guys that get recruited a lot. Then you have the other guys that, are having conversations with schools throughout the recruiting process most of the time. So that's more of a conversation of, okay, well, where do you see yourself fitting? What type of communication are you having with the coach? Is it positive? Is it negative? Are they giving you the runaround? Luckily for our guys, it doesn't happen a whole lot. And then you have those guys that are left over in the recruiting process for whatever reason that may be. They were overlooked. They had an injury that didn't allow them to play a lot of the time. They're, having some difficulties in the classroom. So once we can get them straightened out on their end, whether that be finishing their recovery, getting their grades in the right place, then we take those guys and we try to find them fits. And like I said before, that's kind of the communication piece with coaches around New England. It's like, hey, do you still need a 2025 shortstop? Do you need a 2025 catcher? And sometimes you get lucky and they have a need there, or they just had an injury, or like you just mentioned with the transfer portal, a guy leaves to go to a different school. So I guess the overall answer to your question is just being active within the recruiting marketplace, I guess. As weird as that sounds, it kind of is a marketplace at this point in time. So I think that's really how we were able to get all of our guys to school this year. We actually, every single one of our 2025s committed to college this year. So it was huge for us. It was a big year for our organizational growth.
That's amazing. Yeah, I would imagine, one of the more difficult conversations that you'd have is, everybody starts high school and they want to play D1 college baseball. That's the goal. Yeah, I want to play D1. I want to play D1. And at some point, you probably have to be honest with the player, or you may even just let the college recruiting scene kind of dictate that to the player. Like, hey, you're not getting recruited by D1 programs. Let's expand this search and look other places. How do you go about having that conversation with the player where I would assume you're probably one of the player's biggest advocates, but you also need to say, hey, we got to be realistic here?
Absolutely. We just finished up having conversations with all of our 2026 in preparation for this upcoming season. We take an approach where we get them prepped for what they're about to face. And I give them my personal evaluation on where I think they fit within the college baseball landscape. And I always tell them before the meeting, I could be completely wrong. but I do have some experience in this space, and this is where I see you fitting. And sometimes, the conversation goes really well and they're accepting. When you have a guy, we have Alex Tarrant, Hunter Brazier in our program right now that are both 2026s that are going to throw 90 miles an hour. That's a really easy conversation.
Yeah.
I see you playing Division I baseball. Here's how we get you to being a stud in Division I baseball. Right. And then we have some other players in the program that, don't exactly have those eye-popping metrics, but are still good baseball players. So it's like, guys, because you don't have those eye-popping metrics, you're usually not going to automatically be a qualifier for a Division I school. So now it's like, I know that you wanted to play Division I baseball, but how are we realistic with where you're going to fit, how you're going to play, and most of the time our guys are pretty good about listening to that and accepting it because we have such a good relationship with our players. So it's based on their in-game ability, their metrics, their makeup as a person, and then I sort them from there. And yeah, you're right. There are conversations that you have with players that can get uncomfortable. Um, but at the end of the day, it's our job to make sure that our guys go to the right fit. I never want to send a guy that, gets a walk-on spot at, I went to Northeastern, so I'll use it as an example. They go to Northeastern and then they sit there for 3 years.
Right.
No one enjoys that. So how do we find you a school where you're going to get the academic benefit that you're looking for? You're going to be able to play college baseball for the majority of your career and be happy there. We do a recruiting program for our guys, and I take three local college coaches as long as, an informational session for our guys. And we were talking to, Coach Oringer at St. A's last night about the recruiting process. What are you looking for? And he was saying the same thing. He's like, can you eat here? Can you sleep here? Can you do all the things without baseball that would make you happy? And that's ultimately our goal within the recruiting process is finding those spots for our guys.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Now I wanted to ask about, what else, because director of player development, I would think is a kind of like far reaching role where you're looking at, how do we best prepare these guys so that when they get to the college level, they can contribute right away. A big piece that we've covered in the last few weeks and in our most recent New England Baseball Journal magazine is the strength and conditioning piece. What do you do within the New Hampshire Prospects to kind of prepare guys that when they get to college, this might be one of the toughest things to adapt to is, you're in the weight room 3-4 times a week. You're going to be sore. You're going to be tired. How do you get them ready for that?
We offer them basically a collegiate schedule for training. It's close to it. It's not exact, right? When you're in college, it's 6 days a week. You're at lift 3 days a week. We try to mend that with the realization that our guys are still high school athletes, right? A lot of them still play two sports. So attendance isn't always, what I would ideally have it, but you also have to be realistic about who your guys are and where they are in the process. So for us, we run a 14-week off-season program. We start the first week in December and we carry through to the high school tryouts in New Hampshire, which are March 24th this year. And within that, we have 3 scheduled days of practice. So we have a team day, which is usually on Saturdays, then a pitching and catching day, which is on Wednesdays, and a hitting day. And together they work in unison to present a curriculum that leads them to be prepared for their season.
Mm-hmm.
And the only differentiation in between the age groups that we work with is basically the level of expectation for execution. Everybody starts off, they come in, and the first 4 weeks is basically let's get our feet wet again. Let's reintroduce some of the skill work, how we want to feel the ground ball. That's the most, intense duration of coaching that we do to make sure that that's prepped, right? You got to have a foundation for what you're trying to build later on.
Right.
Same thing with hitting. It's like the first 4 weeks are swing development. How do we help you get better? Are you balanced? What's your bat path like? Can you execute your swing on a consistent basis, or is it max effort to change in a bunch of things? Pitching, same thing. Start off, we educate our guys with, a band and plyo program as well as mobility stuff that they are going to need to be healthy on a consistent basis. And then we take that and we go from basically catch play to, okay, well, 2-2 count. What do you want to throw? What's your best pitch? How do we attack a hitter going into the season? And then with all of that, we have the 3 or 4 days of strength and conditioning that our guys do, which we don't really force upon them because there's so many other things that they have to do at this point, whether it's school, they're playing basketball, hockey. We have a lot of multi-sport athletes. So then it's, the combination of all of those things is kind of similar to a curriculum you would see at the college level, but it's something that we're very proud of to be able to get our players ready for their high school season.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the high school season because, a lot of our audience are parents of or players who are, even before high school, they're kind of trying to figure out the path and what it will look like as they get to the high school level and hopefully reach the ultimate goal of playing beyond high school. Um, what does it look like for high school players in season? Is it just you don't see them for 3 months, or is it they're coming to do strength training with you, or they're checking in with you periodically to be like, hey, I'm dealing with this arm issue, or how much interaction do you have with high school players during the spring season?
They check in with us. Most of the time it's non-contact, right? We don't have our guys come practice with us. Just, we want to be safe. I don't want a guy to get injured with us and take away from another team's, roster.
Yeah.
So most of the time it's more like a check-in, like, hey man, how you doing? Or we'll go to a game, see how they're playing. It's more like an observation period, I guess you could say, during
Hmm.
those 2 months of high school. And then after that, when they come back, then we're full tilt for the summer season.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on some of these travel programs? I know take a lot of pride in how they finish at the 16U level or 15U level, their summer record. You'll see that. And then, you kind of have to pick and choose what showcase events do we go to? Do we go to these perfect game events in, Fort Myers or in, the Georgia area? How do you decide, which players that go to which teams? Do you ever end up playing guys up, if they're big time prospects at the 15U level? Do you ever say, hey, you're going to travel with our 17U team this summer for the big showcases? How do you decide how to kind of place guys within your program?
So our rosters are set in the fall. We don't do any type of mixing in season unless there's an injury or something.
Okay.
But we're very strong in feeling that once you create a roster, that's your roster for the season. You know, you not only need to learn how to play, you have to learn how to work within a team. So as much as you can move players around, you see that a lot now in the travel ball landscape, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we played a Canes team last year, Dan. We played them up here in the Boston Open, and then 3 weeks later we played them in Florida. And I'm telling you, there were three players that played on that first team that were on the second team. And it's like, well, all right, that's great. Like if you move players around, it makes it easy logistically. But what do the kids learn? Because ultimately, once you get to the college level, well, I guess you could say, hopefully, now with the transfer portal, they're there for 3 years, learning how to be a part of a team, learning how to operate within a team and play for a coach. So I feel very strongly about if our kid on the 17U team, that's where he's going to play for the entire season. And we've started to shift from age year to grad year for
Okay.
our teams. We just started doing that this year with our 15U group because we had 2027s and 2028s. The recruiting landscape at this point it should be based off of grad year. Your team should be based off of grad year. We're just trying to figure out right now the best way to do that within our organization without completely, dismantling teams. Because you do have good relationships with the families and families have good relationships with one another. Is that the ultimate goal? No. But is it something that we enjoy? Yeah, we love our families. We love having, watching our guys go from 12U to 18U all on the same roster. It's a really cool thing. I think we just had our first. I think they were 13U when we started, and they just graduated. Or this 2025 class is graduating. It's really cool to have seen those guys go through the whole process. So I hope that answered your question. I think I kind of went on a tangent there.
No, that's okay. Um, yeah, I also wanted to ask you. So I'm, talked to parents at like the 12U level who have expressed concerns that there isn't enough communication or maybe collaboration between travel ball coaches and then coaches of like, in town little league programs and things like that, where kid might be getting on the mound and throwing, 75 pitches for a travel ball program on a Tuesday. And then, the in-town league is trying to bring him back on short rest. And they just feel like there isn't enough of that communication. How do you feel about that? And how do you kind of make sure everybody's on the same page so these guys aren't getting put at risk of injury?
Right. So usually that's a communication thing again.
Yeah.
for us, and the most of the time we deal with the parents, not as much the little league coaches, but when our guys play for us when they're younger, we set an expectation that New Hampshire Prospects is your this if you're a pitcher, then you're going to throw here primarily.
Okay.
So there should never be any situation where we're stuck not being able to throw you on the weekend because you threw for your little league team. And if they did throw for their little league team, obviously player health comes first. So am I going to be upset? Yeah. Am I going to throw the kid? Absolutely not. It's about being able to manage that. And to be honest, players play in our organization because they want the challenge. They want the advanced skill level. They want that level of competition all the time. When you go to a little league game, it's usually not the same level. No knock on little league. It's great for kids, but when you play in the elite division of the perfect game league, you're there for a reason. So we expect our best pitchers to be ready to throw there.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the recruiting. So you played at Northeastern. I see on the 2014 roster. So it was probably, definitely before the transfer portal stuff took off. And also a lot of it seems like it's gotten, there's so many guys playing travel ball now where the high school season is a little less important almost. Like a lot of the scouting is happening in the high school at these showcase events. How has it evolved from when you were getting recruited? How is the experience different now than, what you experienced?
It is insanity, the difference. It is,
Yeah.
night and day. First of all, if somebody would have told me I could have gotten paid to play college baseball, I wasn't good enough, but it would have been a cool little nod to be like, hey, here's 100 grand to come play.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, we have a kid that was in our program, Liam Doyle, that went from Coastal Carolina to Ole Miss, and now he's going to be the Friday starter for Tennessee this weekend.
Wow.
And it's like that didn't happen before. When I went to college, it was, you commit to that school and you're there. If you want to transfer, you either have to go down a division or you have to sit out a year if you move, laterally.
Right.
The communication part of it, like the social media, the reaching out to coaches is insane. It's just as hard for coaches to kind of pick the right players because of the amount of information and the amount of players that are coming at them as it is for a player to be able to get the coach's attention at this point.
Hmm.
You have to stick out. There has to be something about your game that makes you better. And the landscape is completely different. I mean, guys, we have conversations with guys and like, yeah, I'm going to go to this school for a year and then transfer out and try to go somewhere else. I think that's not what you want when you're trying to pick your school. You're not trying to pick the next school before you've actually attended your school.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the landscape that we're looking at now. Guys aren't worried about going to their school and sticking there for 3 or 4 years. They're looking to go to a school, play right away. If they don't play, they transfer, and you just keep switching.
Yeah.
We had a guy at Merrimack last year that's been at 4 schools in 4 years
Wow.
and has rarely ever played. It's just he's just trying to find a fit, right?
Yeah.
It's the path of least resistance. And I think that's kind of a negative side effect of the transfer portal.
Yeah. Well, I
So,
mean,
and
there's
sorry,
like
go ahead.
I was gonna say, but the loyalty kind of goes both ways. You had a guy, Brendan Horn's in your program, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about his story. So he was a guy. He's one of the top guys in New England for his class. I think he was class of 2025. He had
Right.
committed to Vanderbilt, and then when the NCAA rolled out the new rule that they had to cut down roster sizes to 34 as of, I think it's 2026 next year. A lot of these coaches kind of pulled back on offers and said like, "Hey, we don't have room for you anymore." And it was late in the game for him, where he didn't have a lot of room to find a new school. There, a lot of people already had their recruiting classes filled. What did you think of that? And like, what does it say about the loyalty that college coaches are extending to players?
That's a difficult one, Dan. I'd never want to talk about another school's situation or what they're doing with their recruits. Did
Yeah.
I like it? No, absolutely not. I thought, you had a kid that was set on his dream school, was really excited to go there, and then because of the NCAA rule changes to a 34-man roster for a Division I school, he ends up getting cut. It was a very unfortunate thing for Brendan. I know that it affected him a little bit, but the cool thing about Brendan is that he is resilient.
Hmm.
So he got right back on the horse, started going through the recruiting process, and you know everything always happens for a reason. For this, Brendan matured a lot in the few months where he was trying to find a fit. And I'm telling you, we were trying to find him a fit. It was I can't even imagine what all the other kids were going through that might not have been in such an advantageous position as Brendan. I mean, he's a shortstop, right?
Right.
And when you're recruiting players, you usually recruit the middle of the field first, pitcher, catcher, shortstop, center fielder. So I guess it was easier for him than it would be for some other guys, especially with the level of talent that Brendan has. But it's so hard when the loyalty of a school is gone so quickly, and you expect yourself to be going to that school. Brendan had like a Vanderbilt hat that he would wear around all the time, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
It's a really hard life lesson to learn at 17 years old, that nothing is actually secure, but the loyalty goes along with the professionalism that we're seeing in college baseball, right? Guys are getting paid, coaches are worried about their jobs when they're worried about the players. So yeah, you're right. The loyalty factor has started to dip. I think that's why it's so cool for us at Merrimack to see guys that are loyal now. And I think you see that more at the mid-major Division 1 level than you do at the upper level. Right. Same thing with college football. Guys are in and out every single year.
Yeah, absolutely. What did Brendan end up with the school, or is he?
Yep.
Oh, he did. Where's he going?
He's going to Virginia Commonwealth now.
Oh, nice. That's a good
Yeah.
program. That's
Yeah.
good. Good for him. Yeah, and now I wanted to ask about. I'll ask you about Merrimack in a minute, but I wanted to ask about Northeastern too, which has really become one of the top programs. Your alma mater has become one of the top programs in New England, especially under Coach Glavin, who may have been there when you were there as an assistant. Is that right?
Right. He was our hitting coach.
Okay, yeah. How have you have you been surprised by the way that program has evolved under Coach Glavin, and what's kind of been your perspective as you've watched it from afar?
I don't think I've been surprised. Got to be coached by Glav, got to experience, the type of atmosphere that he brought to a college baseball locker room. Coach Cobb has been awesome over there. Chris Bosco is back at Northeastern. It's a huge source of pride for me that my alma mater is good, but I can't say I'm surprised. I think it's just the school needed a change, and when Glav stepped in, they instantly took off. They do a great job recruiting. It's obviously a high academic school, so they attract some of those athletes there. It's awesome to watch them. I think they were picked by Baseball America as a College World Series sleeper pick this year.
I
So
didn't see
it's
that.
cool. Yeah, it's cool. Maybe it wasn't Baseball America. There was some outlet that picked them to be a College World Series sleeper pick, which is, I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah, that is cool. Okay, now Merrimack, how did you end up there? Because I know it's a new coaching staff. Over the last couple of years, anyway. What drew you to Merrimack, and how is that program coming along?
We're coming. It's. I've been there for 3 years now, and just watching what Coach Murphy has been able to do with that program is kind of remarkable. We went from, I think my first year there, our pitching staff struggled. We weren't up to par with the talent that we needed to have to compete at the Division 1 level.
Yeah,
So watching that staff go from, not what you want to something that is extremely impressive is phenomenal. Coach, McKenna has done a phenomenal job with the infielders, and the level of dedication that goes into that program from Coach McKenna and Coach Murphy is unrivaled. Those guys work their butts off to be able to put the best team that they can on the field, and obviously it's proven in the wins and losses that we had over the past 3 years. I think we went from low 20s, under 20 to 33 last season. And I ended up there because I actually played professional baseball with Coach McKenna
Oh, okay.
and the Frontier League. I played
Yeah.
for the normal Corn Builders out there for 3 years. I played with Coach McKenna there, and we've always been friends ever since. And when Coach Murphy and Coach McKenna were down at William and Mary, when they made the change from William and Mary to Merrimack, Coach McKenna called me and was like, "Hey, do you want to come on staff with us?" And after making sure that it was not a problem with the NCAA, I was able to hop on staff and be able to coach those guys again. So it's really cool. It's a really cool staff. I actually got married in September. Coach Murphy married me, was the officiated the wedding. Coach McKenna was my best man. So it's cool to be able to go in there every day and hang out with those guys and be able to foster, hopefully, one of the best baseball programs in New England in a few years.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on your recent marriage.
Thank you.
Yeah, wanted to ask, go back to New Hampshire Prospects. And how many total kids do you have in the program?
For Prospects Athletics or the New Hampshire Prospects?
New Hampshire Prospects.
I think we have around 130 kids in the program. So we go from 8U to 18U.
Okay. Yeah. So what I wanted to ask about was, you hear a lot of parents, expressing concern that they're getting kind of priced out by the year-round theme of baseball. I guess the trend that kids are playing year-round now. They feel like they have to keep up with everybody else, so they're paying a lot of money, and some people are getting priced out. Are you concerned at all that baseball is becoming a sport for people who are affluent and, wealthy rather than, an open path to anyone who wants to play, a big time college baseball?
Yeah, I think it all funnels down the professionalism that we're seeing, start to filter its way down from professional baseball now in college baseball. People pay a ton of money. It's just, I think the average cost that you're looking at for a year is somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000, including tuition, equipment, travel, hotels. It's a ton,
Yeah.
right? But I think when you're doing something for your kid, like you have to invest in them. And if this is what they really want, which is what we really want as an organization, we want the players and parents that really want to be there. If they can do it, great. If not, we also have our Prospects Athletics Scholarship Foundation. So what we do with that is we're able to, one, afford scholarships to players on our upper level teams that are able meet a certain criteria. We've been doing that for 3 years now. We're able actually to afford college scholarships to our own players in-house. And then on top of that is if we have a player that's, good enough to make one of our rosters, right? And they come to us and they say, Coach Carmain, I really want to play for you, but the tuition's just a little bit too high. Then we go through, a vetting process with the family to make sure that, they're not taking advantage of the Prospects Athletic Scholarship Foundation. But then if they need aid, yeah, absolutely, we'll help them out with that too. We want the best players to be able to come to our program, okay, and be able to play without worrying about it. So we've set ourselves up, and Travis Horn, who leads that for us, has done a remarkable job in setting up a foundation that is support for our organization.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough thing because I think a lot of players look for that return on investment. They're saying, hey, we're putting in 8 to 10 grand a year. We want to see that paid back to us at the college level. But, that's not exactly the way, you got to look at the experience. Like, what are they gaining from the experience of playing, year-round baseball and having an opportunity to play with their friends and, establish a good work ethic and resilience and all that different stuff, which, can pay for itself if it goes well. Netting Professionals is proud to be the official netting partner of the Cape Cod League and the New England Collegiate Baseball League. Netting Professionals is in the sports business of improving athletic programs one facility at a time. Netting Professionals designs, fabricates, and installs custom netting, wall padding, windscreen, batting practice equipment, and much more for high schools, colleges, commercial facilities, and stadiums throughout the United States while providing high-quality products and great service to numerous baseball programs throughout the New England area. To learn more and to speak to a Netting Professionals representative today, visit them at nettingpros.com. Remember, when it comes to netting, it's Netting Professionals.
Are you serious about playing your sport in college? Do you need a flexible education that allows you to maintain your practice and competition schedules while also preparing you to succeed at the next level? You should check out the University of Nebraska High School. UNHS is accredited and offers more than 100 online courses, including NCAA-approved courses to protect your academic eligibility. Students could earn a UNHS diploma or take a single course for transfer credit. Courses are college prep, self-paced, and available 24/7, 365. Enroll anytime and take up to a year to complete a course. Visit highschool.nebraska.edu today.
Chris, I wanted to ask you, are you up for sticking around for our 3 Up, 3 Down segment with our producer, David Yaz?
Absolutely. Let's do it. I'm always up for a challenge.
Good deal. All right. Let me introduce you to David Yaz, our producer.
Challenge accepted. Gauntlet thrown down. Let's do 3 Up, 3 down. 3 up, 3 down.
Well, we have done this once before, but this will be once again the edition of Who Would You Rather Be of 3 Up, 3 Down. In other words, would you rather be this player or that player? Would you rather have shared their career? We ask you to step into their shoes and imagine this sort of fantasy baseball situation, if you will. Not actual fantasy baseball. You get what I'm talking about. Dan, you with me?
I'm with you.
I'm
trying to finish the show here. Okay.
Yeah.
No. All right. So first question, and we'll start with you, Chris. Would you rather have had the career of Johnny Bench or Johnny Damon? So Johnny Bench, of course, Hall of Famer, 2-time MVP, won multiple World Series. Johnny Damon, do I need to tell you about Johnny Damon? Of course, you won one of the few players who won a World Series with both the Red Sox and the Yankees. Kind of achieved a level of celebrity, had a book that I hope wasn't a bestseller, but he did have a book. Yeah. Anyway, Johnny, contrast in styles, to be sure. That's enough info. Chris, would you rather have had the career of Johnny Bench or Johnny Damon?
Johnny Bench.
Okay.
That was an absolute no. I mean, when you're thinking about the greatest catchers of all time, who comes in the conversation? Alex Rodriguez, not Alex, excuse me, Ivan Rodriguez, Pudge.
Rodriguez.
Pudge, you get Pudge, right? Then you get Johnny Bench. I always throw Jason Varitek in there because I'm biased, but I love him.
Fisk. Right? And then let's not forget Pudge.
Piazza,
Pudge
maybe.
Fisk.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Piazza couldn't catch. He was great at hitting, but he couldn't catch. That's why he had to have that special glove, that the orange thing on the outside. I was like, please throw it here. Throw it anywhere else, I'm in trouble. Definitely Johnny Bench.
Johnny Bench in a landslide. Okay.
Landslide.
Dan, your thoughts?
I'm going Johnny Bench. 2 MVPs for a catcher. That's pretty unbelievable. And I recently saw, like, in the last couple of years, did you see Johnny Damon? There's a video of his DUI stuff.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Have you seen that? Yeah. It's hilarious. He gets
I'm not surprised.
He gets pulled over and he's like, "Oh, you're targeting me because I'm a Trump voter, right?" And the cop is like, "I don't even know who you are." And he's like, "No, you're coming after me because I was voting for Trump." And he's like, "Sir, I have no idea who you are."
Oh my God.
It's a pretty funny stuff.
If you're gonna target Johnny Damon, it's probably not because he's a Trump voter. It's just because he's Johnny Damon.
Yeah. No, he's but yeah, he doesn't look like he's doing so well in retirement. So I'm gonna go Johnny Bench.
And funny, Johnny Damon could have been a Boston folk hero, but couple things many things he did wrong, but going right to the Yankees after leaving the Sox, he thought that wouldn't have mattered. Oh, it mattered. You got booed when you came back. All right,
blasphemy. That was straight blasphemy.
Yeah. Exactly. I remember that, although this doesn't come from a terrific source, but I remember what Curt Schilling said. He said, good for Johnny, but I could never do it in a million years. That was before Curt lost his mind, though. Okay. Second question: Would you rather have had the career of Bob Ojeda? Now, stick with me on this one. Bob Ojeda, you might remember, former Red Sox pitcher, had his better years with the Mets and was a pretty big contributor to the 1986 Mets championship team. Bob Ojeda or Bob Costas, legendary baseball broadcaster who did other sports, of course. But Bob Ojeda, good baseball player, World Series ring, or Bob Costas? Dan, you go first. Dan's in the media, so I wonder which way he's going to go.
I'll probably go Bob Costas. I feel like he's reached the pinnacle of his profession, done all these Olympics and World Series and everything else. And I am in media, so he's probably the ultimate goal if you had a huge career would be something like Bob Costas. But I do remember Bob Ojeda on that 86 Mets team, and that was I would say a fun team, but maybe a little.
Not in these parts, we don't think of them as fun.
I know, but
they seem to have fun.
Yeah, they had fun. I'll go Bob Costas.
Okay, Chris, your thoughts?
You don't know me very well, guys, but I'm a simple man. My goal for most of my life was to play in Major League Baseball, so I'm going to go with Ojeda.
Go with Ojeda.
Being in front of a camera, it's not always my preferred method. So I'd rather be playing in the big leagues. And it looks like he had a pretty good career. I'm looking at his numbers right now.
Yeah, no, he definitely had a decent career. It was kind of sad when he left the Sox because he was a rookie with the Sox, and actually he flirted with a no-hitter his rookie year. I remember that. He gave up a hit late in the game, and we thought he was going to be the next big thing, and he was a pretty big thing, but for the Mets. Yeah. All right, final question for 3 Up, 3 Down. And another creative one, and I have a feeling I know which way Chris is going to go on this because of his last answer. So, but let's try it anyway. Would you rather have had the career of Joe Maddon or Joe Buck? Joe Maddon, of course, manager best known for leading the Cubs to their first World Series title in 108 years. That was in 2016, of course. Or Joe Buck, who's really maybe the modern day Bob Costas, very well liked from what I'm told. He's not my favorite, but I mean, he's called some of the most historic and been there for some of the most historic moments in World Series history. Chris, Joe Maddon or Joe Buck?
Joe Maddon.
Yeah.
I literally have one of his shirts with the Joe Maddon glasses on the top, and it says "Try not to suck."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was that his catchphrase?
That was his catchphrase. I actually went to a Cubs game. He was managing when I was playing in that independent league out there, and it was one of the shirts that was in Wrigleyville. I went up and I was like, "This is it. This is the shirt. Gonna wear it. Try not to suck." What a saying.
He was quite a character. Now I'm forgetting I don't think he has a job right now, if I'm not mistaken. He did manage the Angels through 2022, but just one of the more interesting sort of innovative thinking managers. So excellent choice there. Dan, Joe Buck, Joe Maddon.
I'm also going to go Joe Maddon. I listened to an interview with Joe Buck on Howard Stern, and apparently, like, he has never felt like a success. He always felt like he was trying to live up to his dad as a broadcaster. Right. He had like a hair plugs thing that went wildly wrong. Yeah, and just doesn't seem like he's ever been super confident or on top of the world or, settled into himself. Whereas Joe Maddon, like, he just lives the life he wants to live. And just, the one question I have for Joe Maddon would be, like, what happened the first 50 years of his life? I feel like I didn't even hear about him until he was like 10 years away from retiring. So I don't know what the first, 20 years of his coaching career looked like. Yeah,
the strange case of a manager who kind of hits it big kind of late in his career. The local example on a smaller scale would be Joe Morgan. And Chris, I imagine you remember Joe Morgan, who managed the Red Sox in the late 80s, kind of got the job as a surprise, was a fill-in when John McNamara got fired, and all of a sudden the Red Sox tore off like 24 games in a row at home. And it was called Morgan Magic. And then he was famously a toll taker on the Mass Pike at one point. But then he kind of faded into obscurity. So who knows? Anyway, excellent job by both y'all on 3 Up, 3 Down. Chris, thanks for being a good sport. And Dan, back to you to wrap things up.
Okay. Thanks to Chris Carmain for joining us on the Base Path Podcast. Subscribe to the Base Path Podcast on your preferred platform. Thanks to our producer, David Yaz. The Base Path Podcast is a Siemens Media production.